We've got lots of those as well. There are lots of differences between Land Rovers. My sister has tried to point them all out to me. I remember that ones with wheels on side are Wolves, ones with slopey sides are lightweight, ones that are pink are the Pink Panthers, which are used by the SAS. We've also got a Christmas Land Rover leading the way.
We've got our regular afternoon show getting underway at 2 o'clock, so in just over 35 minutes from now, and running through until just before 6, and then about a 90-minute break before we conclude with our evening display, starting at around 7:30, maybe just a minute or two before that, and intended to continue for an hour, though that's very dependent on the wind conditions today. It is quite breezy. It is more or less down the runway, as you can tell from the windsock on the far side of the field. But it may be that as the afternoon goes on, it does prove too much for certainly some of the Edwardians, if not all of them. A decision will be taken in the gap between the... to start the show, and I'm told by a very kind member of the audience who's been looking on Flight Radar that it's the Battle of Britain veteran. Reach Britain, and L3 is known to have delivered medical supplies in Normandy. But mainly, these aircraft were used for training back home in the United States. The US Army pilots said the L3 was less forgiving at slow speed. Known to have served with the US Army, though details of its service are pretty scant. It's had many private owners since it was shipped to Britain in 1989. It's travelled regularly to commemorative events in So this Tiger, which served with the French Air Force, is painted up as the station hack aircraft of the US Army Air Force's 353rd Fighter Group stationed at Gox Hill in Lincolnshire during 1943. Above Omaha Beach. By the end of June 1944, 261 American liaison aircraft, most of them L4s like these, although there were some Stinson L5 Sentinels, were operational with the First Army in France. Initially their progress was rather slow communications around the battlefields. Sibley in 1974. His logbooks show that Desmond flew as many other vintage aeroplanes as he could while he was away on work trips, but old Warden always had a special place in his life. Even more so when he bought two vintage aircraft of his own. In 1981, the first of those was the Arrow Active, the second of the two aircraft in this formation. And then in 1986, he bought the ex-Alex Henshaw Percival Newgun. Small workshop in Leeds. He intended this single-seater, the Active, to be an advanced trainer with a view to possible military areas. One would come. In the event, just two were built. The Active 1 was evaluated by the Air Ministry at Martlesham Heath, made its debut in the 1931 King's Cup race, from which it retired due to bad weather. It flew in many more races over the following years. It was bought and flown by the legendary Alex Henshaw, but while he was flying his own Grimsby on the last one day of 1935, powering into the air, the Avro 504K.
Tam myślę, że macie spotkana mążka kopot, że głoszenie się szkoły faktycznie, ale wewnętrznie, nie umyślno, nie wiem co,
Here, the throttle lift on the rotary engine on the car forward into land on what they call the Big Meadow landing area, which really is a boon on days like this. Can't see that. The land as directly as possible into the wind. Absolutely beautifully handled today by Paul Shakespeare. Here with the 504, we've got one of Elliot Murphy-Rose. If it had a failing, it was the fact of it only having a single gun armament, which meant it wasn't the most potent fighting scout. The programme today was due to be in the next slot, so we're just going to get the Polycarpov Po2 ready, and then we'll be moving forward after that, hopefully with our next First World War display. One-off, even had a tank-style caterpillar undercarriage, enabled to fly off ploughed fields. There were quite a few converted into test beds. nature of aircraft development and particularly the needs of wartime compressing development schedules to such a great degree. Problems with the SE5 as it was first built was highlighted when an early fatal accident occurred due to a wing failure. The wings were strengthened and production switched after just 77 aircraft to the SE5A. Yellow one in front belongs to syndicate headed by Dave Bramwell, who saw flying the Supercop tug aircraft earlier on, and the partly camouflaged aircraft following it is the Shuttleworth one. Have already started selling its very popular Hawk family of monoplane sporting and training aircraft. By the time the RAF realised it really needed a monoplane trainer to better prepare pilots for the move on to monoplane combat aircraft, what they came up with was this offshoot of the civilian Hawk family. Only limited RAF service, the early aircraft named Majesties resembled the Hawk trainer much more closely, but they had various improvements, such as an enlarged rudder to make it easier for the pilots to recover from spins. When the war broke out, all of the B-2s moved to Rough, the Blackburn factory, I think, and will merge into number 4 flying trainers. This one is the sole airworthy survivor. It was the 37th of those 42 B-2s built. It served at Hanworth, where Flying Training Limited operated number 5 Elementary and Reserve Flying Training School on behalf of the RAF. And it then carried on in Blackburn's ownership from 1939 onwards, based for many years at Brough, first with the local flying club, and then as an historic display aeroplane with all the various iterations of the company name through to British Aerospace. And in 2008 it joined the BAE Heritage, the BAE Systems Heritage flight fleet based here at Old Warden. Ownership passed to Shuttleworth in 2022 along with the DH6. said this aircraft was basic. Those crews had no accurate torpedo sight in the Swordfish to calculate the layoff required to successfully aim a torpedo when they were attacking a moving target. Instead, they put a row of flashlight bulbs on a bar level with the pilot's eye line. The distance between two of those bulbs represented 5 knots of movement at 1,000 yards. There was no way of assessing the level at the time, although the pilot's experience gained from very regular practice and goodness on these routes. Many more now represented by the Douglas R4D 6S at the Commemorative Air Force. Was brought in by R4Ds for a week before the next delivery could be made by ship. All types of cargoes required by Allied forces in the Pacific were moved in R4Ds. They often fly significantly overloaded and always unarmed. Among the aircraft that supported the US Navy's opposite aeroplane now, as a result of it coming over on its own to mark VE Day and those other anniversaries this season. And by my reckoning, in attending our show earlier in May, and now this one, it'll also be at our Festival of Flight in 4 weeks' time, it becomes the 11th C-47 or DC-3 variant to have landed as Old Warden, all of them in the past 5 years. A beautiful aeroplane with a splendid story behind it, immaculately flown. The Commemorative Air Force R4D 6S, ready for duty, captained by Jeremy Lashbrook. Door 28A1. The first major operational use of the Bristol F-2A was during the Arras offensive. The spring 4 of them were shot down by German Albatross scouts. crews should make use of that, moving away from flying straight and level in close formations and using the rear mounted gun or guns. P-36s, like this beautiful silver one. The Soviets fought in large numbers. The Australians and the New Zealanders also fought gallantly in these aeroplanes. It was in the China-Burma-India theatre that the B-40 achieved true air superiority. Its greatest successes were probably in the Mediterranean, North Africa and the Middle East, with Americans, Britons, Australians and South Africans at the controls. the chief pilot of Shuttleworth, Paul Stone, and the controls of the Spitfire. Represents one of a series of train planes conceived and made by Elliot Burton Rowe, whose initial Rowe 1 biplane with a 24 horsepower Antoinette engine flew at Brooklands in design from 1920 did away with the ailerons the earlier ones had had, in spite of the fact they were very effective means of compared, however, each time, even after it was badly smashed up in the hands of Lieutenant Beatty in February 1911. A long while at one of our displays. Thus, the final landing of the day is made by the Row 4 triplane.
Okay,